Joining us here on the show to break it all down is a former two-time consensus All-American at Notre Dame, former first-round draft pick of the Green Bay Packers. He won a Super Bowl there as well. He's a CBS Sports and CBS Sports Network football analyst. It's our friend Aaron Taylor here on the show. Aaron, how you doing, man? Good morning.
I'm doing good, DA. How you doing, partner?
I'm doing great, brother. Thanks so much, as always, for joining us. And I want to start with Oklahoma and Georgia because this has all the makings of Styles making a fight, but it's also got Baker Mayfield in it. What have you thought about Baker Mayfield's week and weeks leading up to this game? Do you feel like there's any question marks about what he's going to deliver tomorrow for the Sooners?
I don't think there's any question marks about who Baker Mayfield is and what he brings to the table. He's just had an outstanding season. He was the clear front runner for the Heisman Trophy, and I think more than earned that because of what he's done on the field. It's interesting. I think Baker Mayfield is one of those generational type players. He just seems to have it. He extends plays. He makes something from nothing when plays break down. And I think he's single-handedly why this Oklahoma team has positioned itself to compete for the national championship against a very good Georgia team. When you look at him play throughout the year, I know a lot has been made about the flag planting and trying to run from police and maybe doing his best Michael Jackson impersonation across the field against Kansas, but he's a fiery competitor, and he came out publicly and was defending his offensive line earlier on in the year. I think he is, without question, the key to this Oklahoma team being successful against Georgia, but that's the problem. He has to be the key. If you can cut the head off the snake of Oklahoma and do that with Baker Mayfield, I think Oklahoma's an average team at best.
So this defense that Oklahoma's going to play in Georgia is just much better, much more well-rounded, bigger thumpers, bigger hitters than anything that I think Oklahoma has seen this year. Can they figure out a way to solve the Bulldogs' D?
If there's a defense that's built for it, I think it's Georgia. When you consider the fact that they've held their opponents to 19 points or less in all but two of their games this year, and those games were against Missouri, who they beat, and against Auburn, who they lost to. But even in that game, Auburn had some short fields. They did throw 3 touchdowns, but only had about 200 yards passing. So this back end of Georgia's defense is extremely good, and I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. That front seven is as athletic and as physical of a front seven that Oklahoma will have seen. And as good as their offensive line has been, as good as Anderson, that back, has been running the football, I just don't know if they've seen anybody of this caliber on that side of the football. So I think that that's going to certainly be the matchup to watch, but I like Georgia in this ballgame because of the way that they've played defense. They've got a quarterback as a freshman who hasn't had as many completions and attempts even, I should say, as Baker Mayfield's had completions. So as a true freshman, Jake Fromm needs to be serviceable. They need to rely on that run game with an extremely good offensive line up front. And I think the defense will carry the day for Georgia in a close ball game.
Aaron Taylor is our guest here on CBS Sports Radio. On to the other semifinal. It's the big one, another rematch. It's Alabama-Clemson. We've had 2 thrillers before. Do you expect this to be a third close game and great ending, or a bigger advantage one way or the other this year compared to the previous 2?
I think we can expect what we've already seen from the last couple of times these teams have played, and I think it's going to be a close ball game. And once again, I've got Clemson winning this ball game. When you consider what they've been able to do the last couple of times they've met, I mean, it's over 1,000 yards. They haven't been able to find an answer to stop this offense. And even though Kelly Bryant has been not necessarily the game winner that we saw in Deshaun Watson and have that spark where he can put the team on his back, he's gotten very good down the stretch in his last 3 games, particularly throwing 6 touchdowns and an interception, completing 74% of his passes. The pass game that kind of was pedestrian early on has really started to emerge. The run game's there. And they boast, I think, the best defensive line in the country. Now, depth is going to be an issue for them. As good as they are up front, they don't have the quality depth behind them. So it's imperative, I think, that Alabama controls the football, extends drives, and that's the thing that they haven't been able to do. In the national championship game, they were 2 for 15 on 3rd down. This year in their loss against Auburn in the Iron Bowl in their last regular season game, they were 3 for 11. So as good as Alabama's been offensively, they haven't been able to extend drives and stay on the field on 3rd down, and I think that's their best option to be able to beat a very good and complete Clemson team.
What did Auburn do to Alabama in the Iron Bowl that nobody else was able to do this season to Alabama?
They played better football. And the key in that game was that Alabama beat themselves, and Auburn didn't do that. They out-Alabama'd Alabama, and that was what was so shocking in that game, is that we rarely see Nick Saban teams beat themselves, but that's exactly what Alabama did, and Auburn played a cleaner game, and I think that again, is going to be key to the Crimson Tide being able to upset Clemson if that's the case. They've done a very good job of creating turnovers. They do a really nice job of protecting the football. So if they can win the turnover battle, that's certainly going to be a great way to go. But I think, again, the key to them is getting after the quarterback. They've got to pressure Kelly Bryant, which means getting after the quarterback, and that just hasn't been something they've been able to do as consistently this year as they did a year ago. So this is going to be a good matchup with a lot of things to keep an eye on.
CBS Sports college football analyst Aaron Taylor looks ahead with us to tomorrow's college football action. Hey, let's look at the Outback Bowl for a second. Michigan, South Carolina. This is not the bowl game Michigan was hoping for before the season, although I don't know if many people knew or felt as though the Wolverines had a chance to get to the college football playoff. But expectations are big in Ann Arbor because of what Jim Harbaugh brings to the table. Do you feel like Harbaugh is a great marketer, a great recruiter, a great coach, all of the three, one of the three? Where do you stand on him?
I think Jim Harbaugh is a much better recruiter than he's proven to be a coach that can win the big games. And that's just, I think his record bears that out. This is a Michigan team that has done a remarkable job of recruiting talent, sending guys on to the NFL, and they've got some key playmakers in key positions this year, and it's no different. Now, they've been a quarterback away, I think, from really having some of the success that they've seen. When you look at Jim Harbaugh's track record, he does very good right out of the gate, and he's an excellent changer of programs. He gets the culture to be tough. He gets those guys to buy in, but in the big moments on the big stages, hasn't proven yet that they can find a way to win that big one. I don't know if that's going to necessarily be the case against a pesky, scrappy South Carolina team that I think is doing a really nice job under Will Muschamp. We got a chance to see them, and I called one of their games early on in the season, or towards the end of the season, rather. And they're a ball club, I think, that has also had a cultural change and kind of turning the corner. But I think the jury's still out on Michigan and whether or not Harbaugh is going to be able to be the guy that gets them back to the Bo Schembechler days, which I think is what the expectation and the want is for the Wolverine fan base. But with that said, I think they've got a good enough defense to keep them in this game. And I think they're going to need it because the offense, with all the injuries they've had and the inconsistency, I think will fare better because of the time off and getting healthier there. But I think South Carolina has a good chance to win this game.
Let's finish up by talking about the Citrus Bowl because your alma mater, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, will be taking on LSU in this game tomorrow afternoon. And two interesting storylines this year. For LSU, it was Ed Orgeron taking over for the first time as a full-time coach for the entire season. Some really low lows, like losing at home to Troy, and some high highs as well to finish with a 9-3 record. For Notre Dame, last year was just a firestorm, and this year Notre Dame was in the college football playoff hunt until November. What was the tale of these two coaches, these two programs, the way that you saw it this year?
Well, I think they did a really nice job, both of them, of turning their programs around. In LSU's case, it was mid-season. In Brian Kelly's case, it was year over year. Notre Dame came out of the gate like gangbusters, doing a really nice job running the football. They've got the country's best offensive line. They won the Joe Moore Award this year, and a running game and a running back in Josh Adams that has done a remarkable job. The problem with them, though, is that down the stretch, they haven't been able to throw the ball effectively and efficiently, and I think that that's going to be a huge problem against an LSU defense who arguably the strength of the team is their back end. Now, Notre Dame is going to be without three of their top four wide receivers. Arden Key, the linebacker for LSU, is going to be out. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how each of these teams manages the losses on their respective sides of the ball. But I think we saw late in the season what Stanford did to Notre Dame. I went back and watched the game film of that game, and it was an unblocked defender in the box, I think I charted it 8 out of the first 15 plays, meaning Stanford was able to load the box with extra defenders bringing safeties down. Notre Dame couldn't account for them, and that's why they were able to have some success being able to stop the run. So LSU, I think, is built to be able to do that. So can that passing game that struggled down the stretch be able to find a way to get it done? On LSU, with the question marks, with Matt Canada not coming back and making some changes there on the offensive side of the ball, with a lot of guys maybe peeking over the fence to try and go to the NFL, I give a slight edge to Notre Dame in this game, but it's not going to be easy because I think the run game has been their bread and butter, but they're going to have to throw to beat the Tigers.
Aaron Taylor, Super Bowl champion, two-time consensus All-American as well at Notre Dame, a member of the CBS Sports college football team as an analyst joining us here on the show. Aaron, man, it's been a great football season. I thank you so much for joining us when we've reached out to you. Always a fun conversation. You've kept Carter in check, which is a good thing as well. And I wish you and yours the very best new year, the very best 2018, and we'll track you down later on next year as well.
Appreciate it, DA, and let's have a little bit more fun because I want to ask you about your golf game and some of the maiming that you've done with Canadian geese. Can you share that with the listeners? Maybe what happened in Staten Island over the summer?
Yeah, you know, I'm usually one that has a soft spot for wildlife and animals, but that day, unfortunately, I gave a concussion to a Canadian goose, and I still feel awful about it.
Apparently, it was a 75-yard low drive right down the middle of the fairway. Hit the goose. There was blood everywhere, so I think there's going to be an after-school special, the mysterious Staten Island golf goose killer for unsolved mysteries. So keep your eye out for that.
The good news is concussion protocol was much better for the geese after that on that golf course. They make sure they revolutionized concussion protocol after that.
No, there is video evidence of this aforementioned goose, but I will keep that in-house. The look on your face and the hands up to the gooses, and I think the quote was, "Oh my gosh, there's blood."
That video is never allowed to be released, or PETA is coming to shut down my show.
You know, the SPCA, everybody's going to get involved. Happy New Year to you, brother.
Always good to catch up, my man. Thanks so much.
All right.
Aaron Taylor joining us here on Sunday Morning Football on CBS Sports Radio.